loved the second episode, and I could talk about it for hours, but this video, I want to answer some of your guys' questions because they are so freaking good, and also share some of your dark theories. Let's start with Dardell2001, who asks, will the dead in the crypts get raised at the beginning or near the end of the next episode? I'm hoping right at the beginning the Night King reses the dead Starks inside the crypts, so before the battle is even beginning, they have to deal with the dead inside Winterfell. I mean, the Night King's actor did say he was going to have a similar moment as at Hardhome, except for the one at Winterfell was going to be a lot more intense. So I think this preview clip we saw right here,
the dead are already here.
Dany is saying the dead are already in Winterfell, and they're going to have to deal with that as well as the dead outside. It's going to be a shit show, and it has to be right before the main battle even begins. That would make it so much more intense. As for who could be rezzed inside the crypts, I always go back to this clip.
I'm gonna bury my brother in the crypt, next to my father.
If we don't see an undead Rickon, I would be shocked. As for who we could see, well, you know the Night King can res skeletons, right? So we don't need creatures with tendons and, you know, muscles and skin and such. They can just resurrect bones to do fighting. So, I don't know. Littlefinger? Ramsay? Ned? I mean, with Ned and Ramsay, we'd probably have a hard time telling it was their bones, but how about we just pretend whenever we see an animated skeleton, it's one of them. It's a good plan. If we're lucky, this shot will be Arya running from an undead Baelish. Hilarious. Which ties into 0.5 Joker's question. Since this borrows so heavily from the Battle of Helm's Deep, what do you think could be the culvert weakness of Winterfell? The crypt? For sure, the crypts are going to majorly mess them up during this battle. I'm surprised Jon didn't think about the dead in the crypts, but he hasn't been thinking too clearly lately. Dardell2001 also asked, Grey Worm survives the next battle, but Missandei doesn't, and that breaks Dany's heart. Arya is now pregnant with another Azor Ahai. Dardell. We will need 3 to kill the Night Queen, Brienne, and her 2 kings, Jaime and Tormund. They definitely made it seem like Missandei or Grey Worm are going to bite it during the battle with their talk of the future. That's just foreshadowing 101. I feel like I'm leaning more towards Missandei right now because I feel like it would be a shock. You'd expect Grey Worm to die in battle, but nope, it's Missandei who is shanked. As for the threesome of Brienne, Tormund, and Jaime, I wouldn't mind seeing them tag teamer. I'm down. Pegleg Pete asked, Tyrion was the smartest man in the Seven Kingdoms. That has been a big theme so far. But he has now spent a few hours talking to Bran, learning all there is of the three-eyed raven. Tyrion will come up with a last-minute plan for Bran. Oh, I guess that wasn't an ask, that was a statement. Sorry, Pegleg Pete. If after learning Bran's story, Tyrion doesn't use it to do something epic, I will scream. They have neutered him so much lately. Let him do something awesome. Come on, Tyrion. You drank. Now no thanks. Gaia's Shadow asked, I noticed on a rewatch that at the end when Theon and Sansa are sitting there eating soup, it looked oddly blue. Did anyone else see what soup is blue? If they were smart, they would ingest small amounts of dragonglass powder to prevent them from turning. Of course, they may be eating from tinfoil bowls. But what do you think? Rawr. Your question actually made me look up whether the real-world equivalent of dragonglass is toxic, and the answer is nope. So that's actually a really interesting theory, and I wonder if it would work. Mr. Trick asks, what happened to all the Jansa shippers? They've gone very quiet in the last week or so. Yeah, Jansa shippers haven't given me death threats in like 2 weeks now. Odd. Of course, the Jonaries shippers give me death threats because I don't think Jon and Dany will end up together, which I'm not saying I care either way, I just don't think they will, but apparently not thinking they'll end up together is worth giving death threats over. Mr. Trick also shared a dark theory stating, Dark theory, Dany will go full Mad Queen and try to kill Sam and Bran to keep her claim to the throne. My favorite thing about this episode is all the memes that came from this scene. John needs to learn when to shut his fucking mouth. Really, John? You're gonna tell her? You're gonna cause division with your biggest ally right before the biggest fucking battle of your life? Jesus Christ.
We actually have a few more questions for Mr. Trick, sorry. That moment when Davos and the little girl with the marked face was so touching. Do you think he'll die protecting her?
Right? And how much they were saying? The crypts are safe. The crypts. You know the crypts are safe? They said it a million times. Like, come on. We get it. Some shit's gonna go down in the crypts. We're not that stupid. You don't need to beat us over the head with it that heavily. But yeah, showing that little girl that had Shireen's facial markings and both Gilly and Davos having sort of a connection to that does not bode well for that little girl. And I think Davos is going to die during this battle, so him dying defending her, he never got the chance to defend Shireen, so maybe this is his way.
Mr. Trick also asked, absurd theory, Ghost will get dragon glass tips for his fangs and kill the Night King. But seriously, can someone put some bloody armor on the direwolf, please?
Yeah, I still don't understand why they don't have saddles on dragons. If we want to ignore real-world physics, which, cool, fine to a certain extent in a fantasy series, I'm down for that. I mean, Jon wearing a cloak on Rhaegal would have signed his death warrant, but, you know, we let it go. But then we know that Dany's ancestors used saddles for their dragons. Because it makes sense. So I don't know why they haven't made one of those yet. I'm just letting it go. Just letting it go. Just like I let go of Dawn. I let it go. This is me letting it go.
Craig, our beautiful, beautiful unicorn boy, asked, Arya clearly had one thing on her mind when she went to see Gendry, right? But who did she go to see first? She sits down right next to Sandor and shares his drink. She basically asks him, come here often, then encourages him to do something for himself. I think Gendry was plan B, and Beric cock-blocked her.
1, I love how many people you disgusted by that comment. Hilarious. 2, I hated that scene between Arya and the Hound. I feel like their first episode interaction was perfect, it sealed up everything, and then they fucking ruined it with the second episode. I hated it so much, but I don't think that was her trying to get the D from the Hound. I don't think she wanted to be taken doggy style? Does that work? I don't know.
Next, Saints fan asked, hey Roars, love your videos. Great answers for my questions last week. Who do you see dying next week? Grey Worm 100%, right? I mean, you can't plan to move to a beach and live, right? I think Jorah Bear is gone too. Can this fight convince Dany and Jon they need to marry for the realm's best interest, and then she dies in childbirth? What was up with Sansa having heart eyes for Theon? I felt his redemption arc would end with him dying to protect Bran, but now the heart eyes have me confused.
Okay, a few things here. First, thank you. I appreciate the love. 2, don't you ever, and I mean ever, say anything like that about Jorah Bear again. Jorah Bear's gonna make it. Though I have a feeling Jorah's gonna see Dany die on her childbirthing bed. Yikes. I'm between Grey Worm or Missandei dying. I'm leaning more towards Missandei as a shock, and I think that will lead to Grey Worm staying with the Unsullied and fighting fights in Westeros.
At this point, I don't know if Dany and Jon will get married. I still see her dying in childbirth, but now I don't know if they're actually going to get married. As for Sansa and Theon, I guess they said it wasn't heart eyes, it was just a human connection, but yeah, I definitely got heart eyes between them, and it was a bit confusing for me too. I have never shipped Sansa and Theon together before, but after that scene, I was like, yeah, I am all on board. Andrew gave us a crazy theory. Crazy theory. It wasn't Arya with Gendry, it was Melisandre glamoured. That's why she's asking about his sexual history, to see how much power he has left.
That is fucking hilarious, and I love it. Although Andrew had a good point when he said Dany didn't even teach Jon about Dracarys. But since Jon and Rhaegal seem to have a bond, maybe the dragon will know when he wants him to breathe fire. Or maybe Dany had an off-screen conversation with Jon about it, or maybe Jon witnessed it and is like, oh, that's the magic word. I guess we'll see next episode.
PEGLEG Pete said, If the Night King wins, Brienne is the last knight of the Seven Kingdoms.
Oh, do you mean like she was the last person knighted in the Seven Kingdoms? Because that's actually really cool.
PEGLEG Pete also said, the first 20 minutes was all love of family themed and intentionally threw in Dany's face. She has never had this before, and I think it is very important to the end of the show and how the Seven Kingdoms will evolve after the war with the Night King, then Cersei's end.
I love that Dany is seeing herself as an outsider and that she's coming in to shake up a system that doesn't know her and never asked her to shake it up.
Witch Dardell 2001 kind of expanded on this thought, asking, who, if anyone, will sit Dany down and make her look at the bigger picture instead of just the throne? Will make her realize that she needs to have more compassion instead of just an iron will to force her way on others?
I think after the battle, Jon and Dany are going to have a conversation, and it's going to be something like, hey, I tried to tell you I was your nephew and we're family and we have a connection, and you instantly became a power-hungry bitch who only thought about the Iron Throne. So, one, kind of fucked up. You want to know what's more important than ambition? Love? Connection? Family? I honestly love her coming to Westeros thinking she's some big savior and then realizing things aren't exactly how she thought they were going to be. I feel like Dany is having a come to Jesus, so to speak, moment. Come to old gods moment? Come to the seven moment? I don't know.
Dardell was also an imp and asked, will Jaime and Tyrion shit themselves when A, Bronn tells them that Cersei paid him to kill them, B, that he's the last reign, C, all of the above?
Well, we know that Tyrion made that arrangement with Bronn, and Bronn will probably remember, hey, Tyrion will pay more, whatever his enemies are paying. So he might go up to Tyrion and say, hey, Cersei wants you dead, she paid me this. What are you going to give me right now? No promises that a Lannister always pays their debt. Give it to me now or die. And we know we saw Jaime yelling Bronn during some battle, whether that's Winterfell or not, it's to be seen. I think honestly it's going to be a huge blow to Jaime when he learns that Cersei sent Bronn to kill him. Jaime is up there fighting for their child and fighting for a future where their child can actually live in, and his sister wants him dead. That's going to be so shocking, where Tyrion's more gonna be like, what's new? Also, you're a rogue.
Leanne asked, we've got Sam and Gendry, we've got dragons and dragonglass. Why isn't anyone trying to figure out Valyrian steel?
I think even though, as Dardell pointed out, Bran could go back in time and see how it was made, that there's some extra components to it, maybe a little bit of magic, so maybe Bran could learn, but he doesn't have the time, he didn't think about it, or maybe the magic involved in it isn't his sort of thing. But you're right, Bran could easily tell Sam and or Gendry how to make it. They just might not have the tools necessary to make it.
I think there's some dark stuff that goes into making Valyrian steel. Tom said, I have seen a handful of episode 2 reviews. How dare you, Tom? And they all say the same thing. Daenerys is upset Jon let the man who killed her father free. I saw it as Aegon Targaryen set the man who killed his grandfather free.
I wonder how much Jon was thinking about that. Yeah, okay, this man killed your father. This man also killed my grandfather. Actually, my grandfather killed my other grandfather and uncle. Welcome to being a Targaryen, Jon. Your family history is really fucked up.
Tom also said, we still need to see Melisandre, her red priests, priestesses, and the army of the Lord of Light. I expect them to show up like the Knights of Vale did in the Battle of the Bastards. Almost last minute. And will turn the tide.
Oh, for sure they'll show up and it'll be a big moment. No way does Melisandre and her red priests and priestesses miss the big battle between the living and undead, the enemy of the Lord of Light. And I definitely think Melisandre is dying next episode, and it's going to be beautiful.
Finally, Tom said, how many times the first season was Sansa totally team Joffrey? It seems every other word out of her mouth was, I'm going to marry the prince, have his babies, etc. Instead, Arya sleeps with the son of the king. Odd twist.
All I have to say.
If your sister had lived, would have been bound by blood. Well, it's not too late. I have a son, you have a daughter. We'll join our houses.
Dardell asked, they showed a bunch of walkers but not the face of the Night King. Is he flying to King's Landing or just going around Winterfell to catch those fleeing south in a trap?
I think he does send some White Walkers or Whites further south to add to his army while he occupies everyone else at Winterfell. If he didn't do that, I'd be shocked. That's a really good strategic move, but who knows where they're going. Okay, so quick round of some interesting comments, predictions, theories, whatnot.
Will the faceless men wearing Tyrion's face take it off this episode?
Stop it.
Will White Ramsay Bolton show up riding a white dog? Will Yara give Dany the loving she needs?
Yara needs to give all of us the love we need.
Crazy theory. Before going south after breaking the wall, the Night King had Viserion lay a bunch of ice dragon eggs for any future battles, should he not win this time. To which the reply was, the dire dragons eat those eggs for breakfast 'cause they are yummy. You guys are all impossible. Brienne and Tormund get Castle Karstark.
How about House Umber's castle, even though that place is probably haunted as shit?
Also, very bold of you thinking Brienne lives through the end of this battle. During the battle, Widow's Wail and Oathkeeper touch and merge back into ice. Brienne and Jaime merge to form the warrior, and they chop down half the White Walkers. You're the right level of crazy. Will Arya, Sansa, and Dany fight over Yara, or agree to share her?
Arya doesn't share. I think we learned that. Okay, so thank you for your questions. Like, subscribe, and come back for more videos.